I've been making my own homegrown chili flakes for over 3 years, and if you were to ask anyone in my family what their favorite thing from my garden is, this is definitely it. They are packed with flavor, so delicious, and so much better than anything you'll find at the grocery store. And after making over 30 different varieties and types from over 30 different peppers, I'm going to show you how to do it. First things first, what peppers are best and when is the best time to harvest them for the best flakes? The list of varieties I've grown is long and excessive because peppers are my favorite, but if I had to whittle it down to a top 10 for chili flakes, these would be my choices in no particular order. An orange habanero, which could be Magnum Orange, Big Sun, Golden Habanero, or any other classic variety. A red habanero, my top 3 are Red Savina, Caribbean Red, or Mayan Red. Chocolate habanero, Serrano, Red Shishito, Chocolate Ghost Pepper, Carolina Reaper, Chile de Arbol, and of course, jalapenos. These are just my favorites, but I really encourage you to use what you like, though I'd also encourage you to be brave and try a pepper one level spicier than you can usually handle or think you can handle, because once they're dehydrated or put in or on a dish, they tend to kind of mellow out just a touch. That said, for the lower end, Serranos are the chili flakes I use the most and on a daily basis, as they're a little bit of heat, but not too much. Jalapenos are good as well, and the only reason I don't use them as much is because I tend to use them fresh a lot more. Shishitos also make a delicious spice, and since 1/10 of the peppers are spicy, it balances out over the course of a whole container's worth quite nicely. In the hot to fairly hot realm, I think any habanero is a great choice, though my top 3 are Caribbean Red, Magnum Orange, and Chocolate Habanero, with the last pepper being my favorite pepper of all time. The Caribbean Red is a little less spicy than an orange habanero and a bit sweeter, which makes it a powerhouse seasoning in just about every application, while the orange is a true classic and for a reason. Chocolate habaneros balance a ton of flavor with quite a bit of heat, and I struggle to keep enough of those around as they are my extended family's favorite by a long shot. I'll also include Chile de Arbol because while it does have the Scoville heat units closer to a Serrano, it somehow packs way more of a punch. At the top end of spice and heat are of course the Reapers and Ghost Peppers, and these are incredibly delicious, but they are insane, and most of the precautions I'll take later in the video relate specifically to dealing with them. They are amazing at bringing a flat dish to life in flavor, but you have to like spicy to use them even in moderation. So when is the best time to harvest your peppers? There's a handful of opinions out there, but they will be the spiciest, sweetest, and most full of flavor when they're fully ripe. Your jalapenos and serranos should be red, and your reapers should not be green. Green peppers will be much more vegetal and bell pepper-like in flavor, and much less sweet, which I think is a huge part of balancing out the heat, particularly with the super spicy peppers. If you're at the end of your season and all you have are green peppers, that's totally fine. And some people like the vegetal flavor more, but for me and my chili flakes, full ripeness means full heat and full flavor. You'll notice a few peppers had a bit of green in this process, and that's not a huge deal, but always strive for maximum ripeness. Now let's get into processing them. Dehydrating anything is always made faster by increasing the surface area and ability for air to move through. We'll be cutting the top off and then slicing them in half. 3 things I would really recommend after having done this for countless hours is gloves, a mask, and a very sharp knife. I've sliced up and made most of my chili flakes without gloves on, and as long as you really wash your hands with soap after the process, you'll be fine. But if you're new to this, I guarantee you will accidentally touch your face or somewhere worse, and it will burn, particularly with the super hot peppers. A really sharp knife is more important than you might think because the super spicy peppers, in particular, have a lot of capsaicin in them, which is very oil-like and collects in pockets. If you slice cleanly through the peppers, it won't squirt out. But if your knife is dull, you will end up crushing the pepper, and this could make for a very bad and messy time. Finally, a mask is useful, not so much when slicing up the fresh peppers, but more so when processing them dried, as those little particles can very easily irritate your lungs and induce some pretty spicy coughing. I'll come clean and say that I didn't, but we'll get to that. We've been starting off with the Carolina Reapers, and all but one have been perfectly fine. This is far from my biggest pepper harvest yet, but you can always combine different peppers once processed to create unique and rich blends. These are all ready, so let's move on to the next one. Next up, we've got our red jalapenos, which, fun fact, are the chief ingredient in sriracha. You'll find that a lot of them have these stretch marks on them, which is called corking. This isn't necessarily an indicator that they will be spicier, but it is a sign that these peppers grew under more stressful conditions serranos, which in turn means it will be more complex in flavor and more concentrated. Sometimes this means spicier, but not always. As you can see, we've got a lot more jalapenos, and you've got to admit that the range of color is a thing of beauty. Finally, we've got my beloved and classic tiny serranos, which are actually the oldest plant in my garden, and being that we don't get a true frost here, they have been growing continuously for years, though obviously they slow down a lot in the winter. A little bit of movie magic here, and now we've got ourselves a full tray of peppers. I don't slice these lengthwise because it is a quite cumbersome cut to make given how small and lanky they are, so I just plan ahead that these will take an extra day or two longer in the process compared to the other peppers. We've now got them all loaded in the dehydrator, and you can kind of just haphazardly put them in here, but I think it's really important to go from least spicy to spicy because some of these smaller peppers, maybe not the jalapenos, will inevitably shrink and fall down, some of their seeds will fall down, and some of the whole peppers will fall down. And it's a much better idea to have a little bit of jalapeno in your Carolina Reaper chili flakes as opposed to the other way around. So at the top we've got the jalapenos, then serranos, and then these three racks are actually old peppers that I have previously dehydrated, but I just kind of let them sit around so they've rehydrated just a little bit, and they'd be tough to grind up. So we've got 2 racks of mystery red habaneros. They're either Caribbean red habaneros or red Savina habaneros, both delicious. Here we've got peach Carolina Reapers, and then here we've got our delicious red Reapers. Now, when it comes to setting temperature, there's a few routes you can take. I have always done 24 to 48 hours at 150 degrees Fahrenheit or around 65 degrees Celsius. And it has worked like a charm, and I've never noticed a huge degradation in the color or flavor. I wouldn't go any higher than this, but you can bring it down and preserve a bit more color and flavor. If you want to go this route, I would aim for around 125 to 130 degrees Fahrenheit or between 50 and 60 degrees Celsius. We're probably not even an hour into the dehydrating, and I can smell the chilies from outside of my garage, maybe like 6 feet out. So this is definitely something you don't want to be doing in your house, or if it's going to be in your house, in a faraway room, because the smell of those oils is crazy. It's now been about 24 hours. Let's see how the peppers are doing, and let me show you what to look for. So if we open it up, you can obviously see that the peppers that were a little older, that are just getting freshly dehydrated, are nice and bone dry. And even the Carolina Reapers, that are the fresh ones, are getting pretty brittle. Right here, I have 4 dehydrated things. Here is one of the mystery red habaneros. We've got one of the red jalapenos, a serrano, and a indigo rose tomato that I recently dehydrated. And this is a great example of what it should not look like if you're trying to make chili flakes. So when I squish it, it kind of, well, squishes with me. It has a little bit of pliability. It's not wet, but it's definitely not dry. And this is what you do not want for your peppers, because if you try and grind this up, it will kind of make a very funky paste. And if it is on the drier side of pliability, it'll still make chili flakes, but they'll tend to clump together in the jar, which is just really not fun. But now if we look at this red habanero, with just the slightest bit of pressure, it just crumbles. And this is exactly what you want for chili flakes, because if you actually want flakes and not powder, you want to be able to just throw them into, well, the next part of the process, and they will crumple apart and make this wonderful texture. This red jalapeno is kind of there too. If I give it a bit of a squish, it also breaks apart. That one's ready too. The one you really do not want, check out these serranos. And if you notice, when I was cutting the serranos, I didn't cut them lengthwise. I just chopped off the top, so they will inevitably take a little bit longer to dehydrate. When I squish it, it bends, so it's getting there, but it's not done. So if your peppers are looking like this, whether it's after 24 hours, 48 hours, time is not what we're looking for here, and result is what we're going after. So if they look like this, give them another 12 to 24 hours, but if they look like this or like this, they're ready to be turned into chili flakes, so let's do just that. A brief moment of appreciation for these red habaneros, which will be the first ones we turn into flakes. Make sure to inspect your trays for any fallen stragglers, not necessarily for flavor, but more for moisture. You don't want a whole batch of perfectly brittle and dry peppers to be messed up by one squishy one. My 2 favorite ways of turning dry and brittle peppers into chili flakes are using a molcajete or a coffee/spice grinder. You can also use a food processor or blender, but unless you're processing a ton at once, it's not going to be as consistent as either of these two. A molcajete is a Mexican mortar and pestle made out of lava rock, and while it takes a little longer to process, it is my preferred method, as you're able to gradually crush the peppers and then grind them to your desired consistency. As you'll notice, I'm not jumping right into the grinding, but first crushing the peppers against the base and sides, which ultimately makes the end result less powdery. Molcajetes come in a wide range of sizes, and mine is pretty massive, and I'm not gonna lie, I love it. But if you do go out looking for one, make sure it's actually made made out of lava rock, not concrete, as a concrete molcajete is both inauthentic and will always leave dust in whatever you're making. A small side note, if you like making fresh salsa in a molcajete, doing all this processing will add so much flavor to your molcajete, but that's for another video. If you remember from earlier, I mentioned that a mask is a great idea for this part of the process, as you will inevitably be kicking up little bits of pepper into the air as you grind up your peppers. I just decided to power through today, but if you have kids or pets running around, I would recommend either masking up or doing this outside. With our peppers all ground up, I'm now transferring them to little glass spice jars. I previously used whatever old spice jars I had on hand and labeled them with a label maker, but I do this enough now that I bought a set of empty jars that also come with labels for the top, which I'll leave in the description if you're curious. I use whatever funnel I'm able to find, and if the flakes get stuck, you can either use a chopstick to push them through or just give them a shake or tap. I forgot to mention it earlier, but it's wise to carry in your trays with some covering underneath so you don't lose any seeds or bits of pepper as you're moving. We've now got a couple jars of the red habaneros, and next up are the peach reapers. The difference in heat and coughing from the red habaneros to these are night and day, but wow, do these smell good amidst the heat and coughing. From there, we've got our traditional Carolina reapers, and at this point my eyes were watering, my nose was running, and it was a process to say the least. Reapers in general have an interesting trade-off where they have much less flesh, but a lot of these little nooks and crannies in the peppers, which means you've got an insane concentration of capsaicin. This ultimately means you'll get less flakes from the same number of peppers, but they will be so much more concentrated. So if you feel like mixing them in with a heftier but less spicy pepper in a blend, I think that's a great idea. For the jalapenos, I wanted to show you how I use that spice grinder, and you want to make sure you pulse and check and pulse and check. If you let it run for too long, you'll end up with chili powder instead of flakes, which is lovely, but different. Ironically, the button on my grinder kept getting stuck, which left me with more of a powder. When using a grinder like this, you definitely want to let it sit for a good 30 seconds or even a few minutes so that the dust can settle once you're done. Otherwise, you'll be sneezing up a storm. And now here are the spoils of the day. There'll probably be a couple more containers worth of Serrano chili flakes, but they're still dehydrating a little bit longer. We've got Peach Reaper, Carolina Reaper, I may combine those, red jalapeno, this is so versatile, so sweet, so delicious, and then 3 of these red habaneros. They're either Caribbean red habanero or red Savina, don't quite recall, but they smell delicious, and I'm sure they will be delicious because I've been growing them for years, and they're amazing. This is such a wonderful and enjoyable thing to do because it is so much more delicious and interesting than anything you'll find at the store, and one of these containers, depending on how much heat you like to put into your food, can last you for months or even years and will outperform anything else you'll ever try. So I hope that this has been helpful for you, and I really hope that you both grow your own peppers and turn them into chili flakes. If your favorite pepper was mentioned in this video, drop it down in the comments, or if I missed out on one of them, let me know because I'm always looking for more peppers, though obviously anyone who loves a habanero is just all right with me. Thank you so much for joining me for this video, and as always, it's super helpful if you both like and subscribe to the channel. This has been Aaron, aka Garden Zaddy, and I'll see you on the next one.